Welcome to the Au Jus. I'm your host, Beefloaf. This show is being powered by From the 108 and FromThe108.com, where you can get all of our content top to bottom, blogs, podcasts, and videos, including our infamous merch. You can also get the world-famous Sunday Soak there. This show is powered by you, the loyal 108 supporter. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Feel free to tickle the undercarriage in the process. Like, comment, turn on notifications, and most definitely super chat. That's how we get paid. That's how we continue to make content like this. Tonight's guest, I gotta find my little bell. Ooh, there it is. Tickle me a little bit. He is the host of the SoxMachine podcast, which is part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network, a contributor to the Bernsey and Holmes show, which airs daily on 670 Score right here in Chicago, and a close personal friend of mine. Welcome to the stage, Josh Nelson. Josh, how are you, my friend?
I am so glad that is the photo that you use to introduce me. The lighting is so good. You know, the blue just reflects off my skin just right. That is never going to be used again in anything else that you promote that I'm involved with the 108. Never again.
I loved it because last week I had Teresi on here, and I adjusted an old photo, like an old black and white that we took where we had mustaches, but I adjusted it to fit the screen, and it looked ridiculous because he was like truncated down. And then when I did this one and I looked at it, I'm like, I'm not adjusting this. I'm leaving it so that we're hanging off the ends, and it's just kind of a ridiculous photo. But hey, that's a 108 day moment. And those parties are always kind of like whatever they are, you just kind of ingest them, record them. I was trying to run around when you guys were doing the panel and get as many photos as I could from different angles just so that we can reuse these things in the future. Tweet them out, get FOMO from everyone. So how was your 108 day? Did you enjoy yourself, Josh?
Oh, I always enjoy 108 Day, and I'm always grateful that you guys have me involved. I tried something different for this 108 Day for those that were not able to go. I had a little bit lengthier of a monologue. I wanted to use a couple of jokes, making fun of White Sox Twitter, specifically Billy Wires and the crazy images that he finds a way to post in my Twitter thread. Definitely not safe for work. Not safe for any situation, honestly.
No.
And then, of course, the idea of my sock summer shoving a pint glass in between his booty cheeks and serving beer and letting everyone know, don't worry, it'll be fresh. So
I'm glad you used them. Like, that's what those formats are for. And it's the weird thing about doing a live show like that, and we've done a lot of them together at this point. We had the little tour when Goose Island was having us do them, and then we've done a bunch of these types of events. Is you don't know what's going to land. So you try jokes. You don't know how engaged the audience is going to be. Like, they were very engaged. Like, in prior years, I felt like they were more engaged for our panel than yours. I think it flipped this year. I think they were more engaged for panel one. They were a little drunker, and, enough of them were engaged where I felt like I was having a good time going back and forth with the crowd. But it felt like they got a little drunk, and they were congregating. But that's what those events are for. I love that I can get up there and press the flesh with absolutely everyone that walks in the door, shake hands, fist bump, hug for those people who are into it. So that's what I tend to like about it.
yeah, and we don't record these shows because, like, when our friends tag along, Lawrence Holmes and Herb Lawrence and Dave Williams of Barstool, we don't want to get them in trouble, right?
Right.
We want them to be part of an environment that they could say how they actually feel about how is it going with the Chicago White Sox. And that's the price of admission for those that go. Like, you're the only ones that really get to hear and how they truly feel. Everything else is a little filtered. Not as many F-bombs are dropped when they're on 670 Score or on CHGO. But the one thing, and this is something we'll work on for next year. Yes, we'll try to find a way to have more space at Reggie's so we can fit more people. We hear you, the folks at the very last minute that did not heed our warning in November that tickets will sell fast. I assure you, though, if we get the 300-person stage, Beefloaf, no matter how many times that we say buy immediately, even though it's 300 people, this will sell out quickly. People will still complain at the last minute, but
absolutely. There's going to be procrastinators who go. I was thinking about that too, Josh, because you were like, we get the bigger room, and I was talking to a few people kind of later on after the show, like they were like, "Oh, it went great" and all this stuff. People that we're all friends with, and some of them were like, "We like how intimate it is. We like how small it is." They like to be part of the small group that gets to be there. So personally, I'm like, yeah, I kind of like it too. the size there, but there's so many people that are missing out. Like so many people that have been at ones before and they just didn't get a chance. Like Mailman Jack was an obvious one to me. Like, oh, there's no Mailman Jack here. What the heck? So having that capacity on it kind of hurts it. It's funny. We've been doing these all the way back to 2018. Like we did that one at Peterborough.
Yeah. When
we were, kind of didn't know each other that well yet. And it was like we had like your makeshift PA. We didn't even have like a real sound thing. It was like one mic, and you're passing microphones around, and we had like a L-shaped area where everyone was sitting. It's like, I mean, we've come along. We did have our own bartender at least in that room.
Yes,
so that's the key for these things. But I was looking at it this way, Josh. Like I always think we put a lot of work to put a good panel together, a couple good panels. We have a ton of talent on those panels. But to me, it's always secondary because really what this is just a party for everyone to get together with that time that's almost right in the middle between when baseball last was played and to when it's going to play again. And it was just great to catch up with everybody.
It is, and meeting even new people as well. Like the first time that they're experiencing this particular event, and I always get a chuckle out of it. It's like you have no idea what to expect. Svo is suddenly shirtless, and he's having people autograph his stomach. Like, there's no way you can explain that in the show description when you're selling tickets. You just have to be there to experience it. But no, I absolutely love participating. I love planning that stuff with you guys. Cincinnati is also going to be a blast as well in May, just like Minneapolis was.
Yep.
These events keep getting bigger. We have bigger ideas as well, and somehow we keep pulling it off without any problem. So I love doing this. And for those that are watching right now, and if you missed out, just be prepared in the fall when we sell tickets again for the hashtag 108 day in January of 2024, that you buy your tickets right away and you don't wait because it will sell out.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. One footnote to the 108 day and is that we're still taking donations to the Pilsen Food Pantry. So I put it up in the show notes if you want to click down in there. You can also go to fromthe108.com. We have a blog set up. We're not handling any of the money. You just donate directly. You put in the notes, hashtag 108 day, and there. You've done your duty, and you've helped out some people there. You mentioned Cincinnati. I'm really looking forward to Cincinnati. I've been to Cincinnati. It's been a while. I think I went in 2009 with a group of Sox fans, and it was fun. It was wild. It was a really good time. So looking forward to that very much. Now, that one is May 6th. Is that right, Josh?
Yeah, so it's May 5th or the 7th is the series between the White Sox and the Reds. So it starts that Friday night. The big meetup is going to be that Saturday on May 6th. It's a 5:40 p.m. start, and it's local time in Cincinnati. So it's later in the afternoon going to the evening. No chance anyone's going to be doing too much hashtag 108ing. The street by the stadium now, I've been told, Freedom Way shuts down and they barricaded as you have about, I think, 5 bars there. So people can go and have open container out in the public and nice. Drink. So I think that's one idea that we have. We may have something set up inside the stadium. So we're still working out some things. If you are interested in going to Cincinnati, though, you need to get your hotel room or Airbnb like right now. We did not know this when we picked Cincinnati. They have something called the Flying Pig Marathon that you're going to be competing with people to get hotel rooms for. And then the Kentucky and White Sox fans reached out to let me know that it's also the Kentucky Derby weekend. And I'm like, okay, that's cool, but that's in Louisville, not in Cincinnati. And then they had to correct me. When hotel rooms sell out in Louisville, people actually stay in the Cincinnati area and drive and make the 90-minute drive to the horse track. And I'm like, that's like a big event in Chicago, like the NASCAR race that's coming in July. And you're staying in Milwaukee and then driving down for the NASCAR race. Like,
ridiculous.
That doesn't make any sense to me. But regardless, I've been warned many times for those that live in the area. Get your hotel rooms, get your Airbnbs now before they sell out.
That's a great footnote. I've gotten mine already. I know you've gotten your. Actually, yes. all the core group is already locked down for rooms, so that's good to make sure everyone's in attendance. Tonight's topic. Look, I've been wanting to talk about this. I know my boys on the 108 podcast are kind of in agreement with me. We're all on the same foot. There's not many other voices out there though in this 108. Or in this White Sox Twitter stratosphere that want to talk about Andrew Vaughn and are a little nervous about Andrew Vaughn. Everyone pumps his tires all the time. I can't think of an athlete more coddled Maybe Mitch Trubisky's the last athlete as coddled as Andrew Vaughn has been for the relative performance. You at SoxMachine, you guys are never afraid to just tell it like it is or the way you think it is. I look at this as like maybe one of the reasons is that the White Sox are fully behind him because he's the last of the Hahn tank drafts that has an opportunity to really become something. Like this is like the media machine behind him. I wrote a blog about that exact phenomenon because they're at the point now where Garrett Crochet is still a contributor, but that's a bullpen arm. It's different when you're talking about core pieces. Andrew Vaughn might be the last one. So I wanted to get with you because I know you got some thoughts on this. I got some thoughts on this on where we're concerned with Andrew Vaughn. So Josh, the floor is yours, and direct me if you want any images, my friend.
Okay, so I think what's important to start this conversation is that I want to highlight what Andrew Vaughn is really good at, but where are some areas that he has to improve upon to reach the expectations that a lot of people have in 2023. And he is filling in the shoes for Jose Abreu. Jose Abreu is no longer with the White Sox. We all know that. We're all heartbroken about it. And in an article, in an interview with MLB.com, Scott Merkin, Andrew Vaughn said something along the lines that he's aware of the legacy of the position following Jose Abreu and Paul Konerko, and he understands those are big shoes to fill, but he's not trying to be Jose Abreu. He's trying to be him, Andrew Vaughn, and do whatever it takes to help the Chicago White Sox win. And if he continues to be himself, the one that we've seen in 2021 and 2022, I'm sorry, Andrew, that's not good enough. Being yourself is not good enough.
We need a new self.
Yeah, we need a new self. So it's great that you want to be your own person, but the last 2 years is not good enough. You need to elevate your game. So in this conversation, I want to point out some things that I have noticed with Andrew Vaughn. And the one area is like how pitchers are attacking Andrew Vaughn. That's going to be very key with the new hitting coach staff, working with Andrew Vaughn to get him prepared, and what areas that he can improve upon, and we can see better results in the 2023 season. Please don't take it as we hate Andrew Vaughn and we're Andrew Vaughn haters.
That's not it at all. We both want Andrew Vaughn to be great. I've wanted Andrew Vaughn to be great. He just hasn't been.
So I've been watching Andrew Vaughn for draft coverage at SoxMachine during his junior year at Cal. And you will get a lot of people, and that's where the hype begins, is where people will say he's one of the greatest college hitters of all time. No. No, come on, guys. Like, I watch a lot of college baseball. I am part of the Writers Association for college baseball. I vote for All-Americans and award winners in college baseball. No, he is not one of the greatest hitters of all time when it comes to college baseball. He was a very good hitter. He won the Golden Spikes Award, which is the equivalent of the Heisman in college baseball, his sophomore year. And in his junior year, he didn't have a lot of protection in the lineup. Darren Baker was part of the team, if you remember, Dusty's kid that got picked up at home plate.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that Cal team was just good enough to qualify for the NCAA regionals as a third seed. And Andrew Vaughn did absolutely nothing in that regional.
Damn.
So often, especially Friday nights against the premier pitchers, Andrew Vaughn wouldn't get challenged in his junior year. And that's where you started to see a little bit more walks. That's where you started to see a higher strikeout rate because Andrew Vaughn's the guy. He's got to make things happen. If he doesn't make it happen, no one else in the lineup is. So he wasn't getting challenged often, and he was chasing. And while I was covering that year for Andrew Vaughn and keeping track of how he was doing, just because there was so much smoke that the White Sox were interested in Vaughn and willing to take him the third overall pick, there was a series at LSU in Baton Rouge. And I will always remember this series of the way they attacked Andrew Vaughn. Beef, they refused to throw a fastball. He didn't see a fastball all 3 games. They threw curveballs, they threw sliders, they just threw junk at him.
Sounds like Tristan McKenzie going at him.
and he had like a couple hits. And I remember the game's on the line, the bases are loaded, there's 1 out. And I'm finally like, yes, here we go. Get the highlight machine ready to go. We're going to screen capture this. This is going to be a good moment. And he chased and he swung through all these curveballs and he struck out. And I started to get a little worried. Is he the kid in Trouble with the Curve movie? Fantastic against fastballs, and he can hit it 500 feet against really poor college pitching. But if you throw anything with spin, he has trouble with it. And that's why at SoxMachine, when it came to draft day, when I wrote my column for draft day, that the good news is that I think Andrew Vaughn could be as good as Paul Konerko. And White Sox fans love Paul Konerko.
Yeah, they do.
The bad news is I think Andrew Vaughn is Paul Konerko. And you do not spend the 3rd overall pick on Paul Konerko. You don't.
Right.
The player that I preferred for the White Sox is C.J. Abrams, who was just traded from San Diego to Washington, and I think he's going to be the Nationals' middle infielder, probably starting at second base, and he bats left-handed. What do the White Sox need right now? A left-handed hitting second baseman who has a lot of speed, and I think he could also play shortstop as well because he was the prep player with a lot more athleticism. The possibilities are not exactly endless, but there's more possibilities of what Abrams can do on the field, providing more impact than a right-handed hitting first baseman. It is a very limited profile what Vaughn can provide to the White Sox. Right. And I know I'm reciting his CV because we have watched what Andrew Vaughn has been the last 2 years, but we're talking about a 0 career WAR baseball player after 2 seasons.
1,000 plate appearances, Josh. I mean, like, or more than 1,000, a little more than 1,000. That's a lot. That's a lot of data already.
0. That's replacement level. The White Sox just let Adam Engel and Danny Mendick go, and they have been more valuable in their career than Andrew Vaughn. Now, why is it at 0 for Andrew Vaughn? That's really simple. He is a terrible outfielder.
Why is he a terrible? To that part.
Yeah. Why is he a terrible outfielder? He's a first baseman. He's a first baseman because he has limited athleticism. He doesn't have the foot speed to play in the outfield. Guys, again, I watched that Cal team. They were not that good. If he had foot speed, they would try him in the outfield. You know why they didn't try him in the outfield? He doesn't have foot speed. Like, I don't understand where the break in logic was for the White Sox. If the college team didn't think he could play in the outfield, why? I just don't understand. So the White Sox have sunk his career WAR value in his first 2 years. Poor guy.
Putting them out of position there.
And I know that everybody request that let's please ignore his defensive stats. Okay, fine. So let's look at offensively. And one thing that Andrew Vaughn does incredibly well is that he still smashes fastballs. He did that in college. He did that in the little minor league action that he had. And ever since he's been in the major leagues, without a lot of player development down in the minor leagues, he still smashes fastballs. Last year against the four-seamer from right-handed pitchers, so he doesn't have the platoon advantage here, Andrew Vaughn hit 309 against that pitch and slugged 543. He only whiffed 14% of the time. Now, that's drastic when you compare him to someone like Romy Gonzalez, who might be the starting second baseman for the White Sox, who whiffed 45% of the time on four-seam fastballs against right-handed pitchers. So right-handed pitchers had a terrible time blowing fastballs by Andrew Vaughn. Velocity is not an issue at all for Andrew Vaughn, which is a great sign. And when he makes contact against four-seam fastballs, his average exit velocity is 95.3 miles per hour, Beef.
That's
so
great.
Comparing him to all of the major leaguers, my scouting grade would be Andrew Vaughn is a 60 grade hitter against four-seam fastballs, either from the right, facing right-handed pitchers or left-handed pitchers. So he's above average, and he's going to do a lot of damage against the fastball.
No, that's the good, along with the good of Senor Sox giving us a drink. Thank you, Senor Sox. And he says, Andrew Vaughn, 25 home runs in 2023. So I hope so.
So let's talk about that, Senor Sox, on how Andrew Vaughn can get to that 25 home runs. And that is the slider. And something changed in 2022 where teams picked up Beef that Vaughn can hit a fastball, Vaughn can hit a slider. And he faced more sliders than four-seamers last year against right-handed pitching. Against righties, he faced a four-seamer about 28% of the time. Sliders, he saw 33% of the time. And he hit only 186 batting average, and he slugged 290 against sliders, which is terrible. And he whiffed 31% of the time. So as you can see in this graphic here, and this comes from Baseball Savant, so this is all public data, it's not good. And it's not been a lot of improvement. Sure, he cut down on the strikeout rate against sliders, and he hit 2 more home runs. But pay attention to the batting average and balls in play here. In last year, the batting average for Andrew Vaughn when he hit a slider into play was only 230. Now, Beef, we talk about BABIP a lot, especially when it comes to someone like Tim Anderson and why Tim Anderson has a high batting average, yet he doesn't walk. And people reference BABIP because of his speed ability, that he can get a lot of infield singles. We just talked about the limited athleticism for Andrew Vaughn. When you have a 230 BABIP on a particular pitch, it doesn't even matter if you put the ball in play. You don't hit it hard enough to make an impact when you do put the ball in play. So you have multiple problems here against the slider, especially against right-handed pitching. You whiff at it almost a third of the time, and when you do put it in play, you don't hit it hard or hard enough to get singles. Now you got a problem here. And there was another graphic that I shared with you at Baseball Savant when it comes to pitch sequence and how righties are attacking Andrew Vaughn. And this is a very colorful chart, but stick with me here. This is something that hitting coaches use. So when they sit down with hitters and they talk about game plans for a particular pitcher, they will talk about tendencies. And this is the tendencies of right-handed pitching facing Andrew Vaughn. As you can see, that yellow piece of the pie on 0-0 counts is almost equal as four-seam fastballs. So for Andrew Vaughn, he's got like a 50-50 shot that this is going to be a fastball, and maybe I should swing at this, or it's going to be a slider. And on the very next pitch, the most popular pitch is a slider. So Andrew Vaughn doesn't see fastballs until he's ahead of the count, Beef. When he's up 2-0, 3-0, 3-1, when he has the advantage, that's when the fastballs come. And based on the data, that's when we know Andrew Vaughn does a lot of damage. But early in the count, or if he falls behind in the count, he's just going to continue to see more spin. And this is where Andrew Vaughn gets into trouble, and this is where he gets into hitting slumps, and this is where he doesn't live up to expectations. Because right now, the league has the book on Andrew Vaughn. If you can throw breaking stuff early in the count and you can get early strikes, you got Andrew Vaughn. If you miss your targets early in the count and you fall behind like 2-0, you're in trouble. So make sure you pinpoint your fastball, or he's going to hit it hard somewhere. And hopefully, for a White Sox fan perspective, he hits it hard enough to go into the bleachers for home runs. That's why when I look at everything, and for Senior Sox hoping that Andrew Vaughn hits 25 home runs, the game plan is really simple for Andrew Vaughn. He has to hit breaking stuff better. He has to hit sliders better against right-handed pitching. And the new trend in Major League Baseball, as we've seen with elite pitchers like Dylan Cease, they have no problem throwing half their pitches to sliders these days. So if he doesn't figure it out in 2023, this is yet going to be another detrimental hurdle for Andrew Vaughn to clear. And if he doesn't clear it, then we're going to be talking about a third overall draft pick after 3 full seasons in the major leagues. That's still below 2 career WAR. And we're going to be wondering what the White Sox have here as he now exits his rookie contract and goes into arbitration into 2024. So the White Sox hitting coaches, this is something serious that they have to help Andrew Vaughn with. There's 3 hitting coaches now in the clubhouse, so there's plenty of guys to help him out. But for all White Sox fans, this is something to focus on with Andrew Vaughn. And if he can learn this, if he can make a drastic improvement against breaking pitches, then yes, Andrew Vaughn could be an all-star first baseman with the way that he hits the baseball. But if he doesn't, it's going to be quite the drop-off in production from Jose Abreu to Andrew Vaughn.
No, Josh, you mentioned he's got to combat this problem. He's got to figure out a way to combat this. Do good hitters manage to actually do something with a pitch that they are weak at, or is it more of a they fight it off, they learn how to punch singles with it, they just become defensive until they get that pitch they're going for, or do some of them become excellent hitters at their deficiencies?
Great question. Great example on the White Sox is Tim Anderson. Back in 2018, Tim Anderson had the same problem as Andrew Vaughn. He could not hit a slider. If you flipped a slider at Tim Anderson, it was an easy strikeout. He had a whiff percentage up in the 30s as well, and his batting average against sliders was in the 240s. He made a focus in that offseason to hit breaking stuff better. Tim Anderson in 2019 hit 410 against sliders. And if you recall that season, and that's his big breakout season where he won the batting title, he sat on sliders. Like, he wasn't looking for fastballs. He was waiting for you to flip that slider early in the count and pull it to left field and hit home runs and get extra bases off of that particular pitch. So we've seen it within the Chicago White Sox. If a hitter has enough confidence in their ability to read the fastball and adjust a fastball, okay, I'm comfortable and confident I can hit heat. Now let me focus on what I have to make adjustments against breaking stuff. And the biggest thing with breaking stuff is pitch recognition and seeing it enough in the major leagues to understand on how the spin breaks, when it breaks in the pitch tunnel, and how you have to make adjustments with your swing plane to make better contact against breaking stuff. But often this type of development beef, and especially when it comes to pitch recognition, happens when you're in the minor leagues. Tim Anderson had full seasons in Kannapolis, Winston-Salem, and Birmingham. Right. Andrew Vaughn never played in Birmingham. Andrew Vaughn never played in Double-A. So now here we are. We have this comparing of other players that the White Sox have had, and they developed internally. Eloy Jimenez and Luis Robert had full seasons in Birmingham as well. And we could see the difference here in just the quality of hitting at the plate. And if this continues, if Jimenez and Robert and Anderson are still a couple of steps ahead of Andrew Vaughn, I think the answer is very simple. Vaughn did not have the player development that those three had. And he didn't because the White Sox panicked after Eloy Jimenez made a dumbass play in spring training. Vince Carter the wall in left field on a meaningless home run and forced the White Sox to take someone that they were honestly thinking would be their primary DH for the 2021 season, which was not a great idea, in Andrew Vaughn, and threw him out in the outfield. They'd thrown so much at him that my biggest fear, and this is the whole point of the podcast, and I really don't want to scare White Sox fans, we might be going down the Gordon Beckham path.
Oh, no.
Not as severe as the Gordon Beckham path, because that got super severe, where Beckham had like a 500 OPS or something. Not that bad. But what I mean by going down the Gordon Beckham path, elite college hitter, all of a sudden, not so elite when they get to the major leagues, because the White Sox were not patient with them. And it's completely opposite of everything they did during this rebuild. And that's where it's just really odd. They handled Andrew Vaughn completely different than they handled Tim Anderson, than they handled Yohan Moncada, Eloy Jimenez, and Luis Robert. And they've asked so much of him, and he's willing to take it on, which, bless him. Thank you for being headstrong and still being confident in yourself.
Right.
But he is someone that all White Sox fans have to zero in on, and how he is performing in spring training and how he's performing early in the 2023 season, because the book's out on him, and the amount of sliders that he is seeing right now, beef, is only going to continue to increase against him if he struggles.
I mean, it's funny that you brought up everything about the slider, and the reason why I brought up Tristan McKenzie earlier is because we were sitting at a game, and you were telling me how terrible Vaughn had done against McKenzie, and McKenzie's on the hill against him at home, and he just spun sliders at him, and he was 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts. I mean, he just absolutely dominated him. So it's like the good pitchers definitely have this book, and if they have the repertoire, they're going to come right at him in that. And you are scaring me, and you're right about the approach they took. It was bizarre because the year before, they were willing to take a shot at Edwin Encarnacion. It didn't work, fine, but it's easy to find a DH for a minimal cost that you plug in the spot, and you could have left Andrew Vaughn in AAA or even AA as he hadn't even been in Birmingham. It's nuts that they kind of went down this path, but here we are. We're in this spot. I mean, there's not much more we can do as far as like putting the shit back in the horse. He's got to learn on the fly. He's got to learn on the job. And like you mentioned with Tim Anderson did learn at the major league level. Like, he got better and better as he was at the major league level. Some of my concerns, though, are that maybe he doesn't have what Tim Anderson has in the ability to potentially fix some of these problems. For me, it goes all the way back to 2020. Before Andrew Vaughn was in the majors, the 108ers, wives in tow, we went to what we called Sox Prom at the time. It was the opening event of the Sox Fest that year. It was Thursday night. It was intimate. It was full season ticket holders only, and you got to be there for a little bit of a banquet, drinks, and then kind of meet the players. They're standing around, and the players were feet from you. This was not a crowded, like everyone's getting autographs. Some people did get autographs, but not many. Most people just chatting. I happen to notice Andrew Vaughn standing right behind our group, almost back to back with Trezy. Okay, Trezy is 5'9", maybe 5'9 and a half, and he was clearly taller than Andrew Vaughn. And I thought Andrew Vaughn 6 feet, and if you look up Andrew Vaughn on Baseball Reference, he's listed as 6 feet right now. So this is something we would bring up as a recurring joke on the 108 podcast, just kind of making fun of his diminutive size when it came to like kind of other players on the field. I brought it to the attention of Sean Anderson because the CHGO guys were talking about it. And I said, here's some proof. And I'm putting a picture up on the screen. Adam Engel is 6'2". And when you'd see them get together in the outfield at a pitching change or whatever, Adam Engel absolutely is so much taller than Andrew Vaughn. It's ridiculous. There's not a 2-inch difference there. That's 5 inches difference in height. And it's substantial. And there's proof absolutely everywhere. Like, I know people lie about things. You know, they lie about their weight. They lie about the length of other things. But why lie about the height there? I thought it was peculiar. So I went down a rabbit hole. I decided, okay, I'm going to take a look at this. Now, he as a player has worn down the last 2 years too, right? Mm-hmm. He'd been put in left field. Now, I see a lot of people blaming, oh, well, he had to go play left field. That's why he got worn down. Look, Adam Dunn wouldn't get worn down in left field. Everyone who's a terrible athlete, big fat ass, is fine in left field. My man's worn down back-to-back years just from standing with a glove in left field. So I was like, I have to dig into this a little deeper. So what I did is I took a look at StatHead on Baseball Reference, and I pulled hitters 5'9" or under with 25 homers in the season, a 500 slug, and a 200 ISO. I wanted to see kind of in the last, since I was born, so since 1978, who was the group of these shorty hitters. And there's the list on Baseball Reference. Now, if you look at a quick glance, materially, these are all speed players. These are all players that I would call, they use speed to their advantage. They might not all have 30 stolen bases in a year, which a lot of them do, to be honest with you. But most of them do. They have the explosiveness of being quick. This is kind of the skill set of the smaller player in MLB, with one exception. And it's an absolutely hilarious and fun exception there. And that exception is my man, Matt Stairs. Matt Stairs is the only one on the list that resembles Andrew Vaughn. And I thought to myself, this makes sense too, because Andrew Vaughn, not a good athlete. And I look at Matt Stairs, I don't think good athlete either. I looked up at what limited defensive information we have, Josh, which is just the WAR data. We don't have all the fancy stuff that we have these days. And he was a bad defender. As you might have been able to guess, you probably watched him when we were a little bit younger. Bad defender. Had some great years in Oakland, though. Hit the hell out of the ball in his late 20s. Very good hitter. And it got me wondering, like, why is it such a rarity that someone small lacks speed and actually is a productive, power hitter in baseball? And I wondered it, and I thought about it a little bit more. I thought, well, when the guys that play first base normally are these big, hulking, long levered guys, right? They generate their power because they have a lot of leverage. The guys that are Andrew Vaughn's size generate their power because they have explosiveness. They have muscle and strength, and that's the way they kind of generate those. So I thought, well, let me take a look at first basemen that are 5'10" and shorter. I gave another inch just because I'll be honest, the 5'9" and shorter was a very limited sample size. So again, since 1978, 5'10" and shorter first baseman that had at least 300 plate appearances. I'm going to pull up the list for you right now. It's almost all the same people. You got Matt Stairs on there. You've got fan favorite John Kruk, who actually got his final hit with the White Sox. The only guy who would resemble like a kind of a star player on this list is Steve Garvey. And obviously Steve Garvey pops up a bunch on there and is a terrific player. So I don't want to go down this path, but I have to go down this path. I worry that Andrew Vaughn might be suffering from the same issues that Nick Madrigal suffered from, and that Trezy and I took so much shit for writing, this guy's too small, he's not going to make it. Andrew Vaughn's not as small as Madrigal, but he is small for what he's expected to do. He's expected to have all this power and to be. No one plays a guy who's 5'9" at first base. And you can see from the chart, no one does it. I mean, last year, Michael Chavis played, but that's for the Pirates. They don't care. They're just rolling out whatever garbage team.
They just signed 3 first basemen.
Because they knew that they come play 5'9" guy at first base. And so to me, it's getting a little haunting that he is so small. And he's also he also kind of suffers from the bat first high in the draft syndrome. Treasy did a blog about this a long time ago. And when we looked up, this is when he was like hating on Seth Beer. And he's like, we don't want a guy who just only hits at the top of the draft. And when you look those guys up, top 3 picks who are just strictly bat only. So I'm eliminating even Bryce Harper, who is a good enough outfielder to pass, right? Mm-hmm. You really get down to 2 names in the last 15, 20 years that are memorable. And that's Pat Burrell, who had a good, solid, fine career, horrible with the glove, and then Delman Young. And Delman Young did not have a fine passable career. He had 1 or 2 good years. And I get myself in this spot where I'm really worried about Andrew Vaughn's athleticism, just his raw athleticism being enough to accomplish the things that we think he can accomplish.
And the thing about first baseman, especially when it comes to wins above replacement, you have to hit, because you get a negative rating on defense because you don't do a whole lot at first base compared to other positions on the field. Usually first basemen at limited range because they have to get to the base to field the throw, and you don't get a lot of bonus points for making a bunch of catches or scoops to the dirt when it comes to wins above replacement. So to really elevate your WAR value, you have to hit, and you got to hit a lot. And I'm glad that you bring up as far as these numbers, because the White Sox at back-to-back seasons drafted undersized college hitters. They were elite college players, but they didn't really fit the model of what you would want to have out of the college position player, or what other teams coveted out of the college position players. For example, the guy selected in front of Nick Madrigal is Alec Baum with the Philadelphia Phillies. The guy drafted after Nick Madrigal is Jonathan India of the Cincinnati Reds. And those guys are faring a lot better than what the White Sox got out of Nick Madrigal, Craig Kimbrell, and AJ Pollock. God, this is getting so depressing. The White Sox had back-to-back top 5 picks, and I know this is a popular topic in Chicago because the Chicago Bears had the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. But it doesn't matter what sport that you're in. When you got a top 5 pick, you cannot fail. You have to hit on that pick because you spend so much of your resources getting this person and signing them to a big bonus. It has to work out. And with Andrew Vaughn, everything that we pointed out offensively, if all of a sudden with the new hitting coach staff, B-Flow, if he could do a better job against sliders, I'm talking like a 25% whiff rate, and he elevates the batting average to 250, but he has got like a 450 slugging percentage against sliders. So he scares you. He hits more extra base hits against sliders from right-handed pitching. Then I think offensively, he's got enough in the tank to be a 2 to 3 WAR type of player. And you take that for the White Sox at first base. But it's not something that you go back in the history books and you compare them to the other draft picks. And somebody asks, okay, why did the White Sox take Andrew Vaughn 3rd overall when you're 5 years down the road and we reevaluate the draft class? The thing I'm worried about, too, is defensively with this undersized that you mentioned. And he is undersized because I interviewed him the day after at Sox Fest. I'm taller than Andrew Vaughn. I'm 6 feet tall. Tim Anderson is slightly taller than I am. Yasmani Grandal is we saw eye to eye level. So Yaz and I are about the same height. Michael Kopech is huge. Lucas Giolito is huge.
Abreu's huge. Nomar Mazara was gigantic. Like I remember seeing other players and thinking everyone else's height seems on the level to me. Like Abreu's 6'3". Yeah, he's taller than I am. I'm 6'2". Vaughn was the only one that stood out to me. Like he ain't what he's saying.
Well, and he and Nick Madrigal. Like Madrigal was listed at 5'6". No, dude, you're 5'4". You're 5'4". You're a Tom Cruise 5'6". Okay, whatever. But so back to being undersized at first base. Catch radius. We usually hear this term when it comes to football when we're evaluating wide receivers and tight ends, and it's incredibly important. This is why wide receivers that are 6'3" to 6'5" get drafted earlier than most is because their incredible catch radius. It gives the quarterback a higher percentage of accuracy when they throw the ball in your vicinity. Yes, there are some shorter wide receivers that have really strong hands, but it requires the quarterback to be more accurate to those throws to those wide receivers and tight ends if their catch radius is smaller than wide receivers or tight ends that are 6'3" or bigger. And the same premise can be applied in baseball when it comes to first baseman. You're going from a 6'3" Jose Abreu to a 5'10" Andrew Vaughn. The catch radius is much smaller at first base for White Sox infielders, in particular, Yohan Moncada and Tim Anderson. The White Sox are asking Tim Anderson and Yohan Moncada to be more accurate with their throws over to first base with a smaller first baseman. And the other things that the White Sox are going to miss defensively with Jose Abreu, not so much the scoops in the dirt, but Jose Abreu was so good at throwing the baseball, Beef Loaf, especially as far as turning double plays at second base or nailing runners at home plate. So those are other things that Andrew Vaughn has to work at. And I keep hearing this, well, with Andrew Vaughn going back to first base, everything's going to be normal and he's going to meet expectations. Ladies and gentlemen, he's barely played first base in the major leagues. We have no idea if he's a major league first baseman.
Right.
No idea. Like, here we are, we're entering year 3, and we honestly have to say we still have no idea what kind of player Andrew Vaughn is. Despite 1,000 plate appearances, despite 2 full major league seasons, what we know is he's not an outfielder at all.
Definitively.
So,
Nathan Sheba says, Josh, you look very pensive tonight. Fingers on chin. Nathan, thanks for the drink.
Hey,
we appreciate that.
I got to tell you, Nathan, when Beeflo breaks it down and he brings up the numbers, I know a lot of people don't want to give the 108 credit for their baseball analysis, but Beeflo, when he goes down these rabbit holes, he does a really good job, and he identifies his target and he brings up really good examples. And yeah, I saw some of the comments section that I see a lot of MVP candidates in that list. Yeah, it's a lot of Mookie Betts. It's a lot of Jose Ramirez. You know what? Mookie Betts plays outfield, and Jose Ramirez is the best third baseman in the game of baseball right now. And they play premium defensive positions. Andrew Vaughn does not.
He does none of that stuff. That was the whole point of the graphic. Like, he's only like Matt Stairs. I like Matt Stairs, but I would like Andrew Vaughn to be better than Matt Stairs. That's kind of my issue there. Josh, you bring up great points there. I think from my perspective with regards to athleticism, I'd like him to sell out for strength. I would like him to get in shape and be much stronger. He shouldn't be wearing down at the end of the season. I need his ass in the weight room. And I would sell out for putting on pounds. He already has no range. He already has no speed. Just put on a lot more strength. And you brought up the point about they don't know if he's a first baseman. I agree with you. He may end up at DH faster than we think. And that's a big problem on this roster. But he may end up over there. You might see it like little intermittently. You start seeing Gavin Sheets sliding in there at first. It's like, oh, it's kind of weird. They're playing Sheets. Oh, they got to give Eloy another day off. You know, I'm a little apprehensive, a little scared of that.
Or Eloy's playing right field.
Which I will love. He'll be right by me. He probably won't fall in the spider webs by us because he doesn't know where he's going yet. You know, they can't play him too much out there, but I would love to yell at him from my seat.
He would land in the Miller Lite like landing area. Like, he'll go up, flip over the wall, crash, and like we'll watch him crash on one of the tables below beyond the fence, like WWE, and be like, well, yeah, I guess Andrew Vaughn's going to be the full-time DH now. So Lloyd Evans has hurt himself in the field again. If you're looking for reasons to be optimistic after this conversation, I think what we've done is identify areas where Andrew Vaughn can improve upon. And if he improves on those areas, it's going to bring a big impact to the White Sox. Back to the Mookie Betts and Jose Ramirez, short guys, undersized, that hit for a lot of power. We can add in Jose Altuve as well in this conversation. Yep. What was the thing that changed their entire career? They all decided to pull the ball in the air. They identified and made adjustments in their swings. Forget opposite field power. I don't have it. I'm not that type of hitter. Right. But what type of hitter that I am is that I can pull any pitch that you throw to me, and I could pull it in the air, and I could take advantage of that angle. And that is where I will get more power in my swing, is more pull power. And back to your strength, if Andrew Vaughn does add some more strength and he focuses on pulling more pitches, because we saw him a lot try to like follow the same path as other White Sox hitters, trying to hit opposite field power. And that was just a really dumb idea. And the White Sox coaching staff was really slow to learn that this is a completely different baseball. The baseball's dead. Stop doing it. Everybody make adjustments. And the White Sox were slow to make adjustments. But with a brand new season, if we see Andrew Vaughn pull the ball more in air, then to Senior Sox's point, yeah, I think 25 home runs is realistic. Maybe even 30 plus home runs from Andrew Vaughn is realistic, especially if he could do better against the slider. So he's got to do better against the slider. We think he's got to be stronger, and he's got to rework his swing a little bit to pull the ball more in the air. If he could do those things, then Andrew Vaughn can be quite successful and provide a positive impact to the White Sox. And then we'll just see where he's at defensively during the season.
Josh, this has been wonderful. I appreciate you stopping by. I feel a little better that we got that out. I think we needed to get that out. I appreciate you bestowing your White Sox thoughts on us, giving us some food for thought, maybe raising our level of skepticism a little bit, or maybe our expectations now. But on this show, we're not trying to be right. We're just trying to understand things. And so I appreciate you joining the conversation, adding to it, making this great. Be well, my friend. I'll talk to you very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Beef.
All right. A little preview for next week's show. I'm going to have Mike Rankin on from Future Sox. I got a bone to pick with Mike. He's been on my shit list for like 2 years now. This stems back to a Future Sox blog back in the day. We'll get into it when we get on the show. Also, I'm regularly listening to the show. He sheepishly tried to pretend that he didn't know what FV rating are for the prospects on Fangraphs are, just because they disagreed with his thoughts on a particular prospect. And also, I'm going to ask him some real prospect questions. Some things that don't get asked on the Future Sox podcast. I'm going to pin him down and make him answer some stuff for us. So I hope all of you enjoy that. That'll be next week, January 16th at 6 p.m. Thanks again to Josh. Thanks to all the 108 fans that showed up in the YouTube comments. Love you guys. Appreciate the drinks and tips. Thanks to everyone that came out to 108 Day. What a great celebration. So see all you guys soon. Bye-bye.